I think, billions of dollars in terms of deposits in their treasury. China, of course, which is financing the CPEC, and even other countries. In fact, now the IMF is talking to them also. So the Pakistan keeps slipping out of the net somehow every time we tighten the noose. But the problem is not that. The problem is that even if Pakistan was to develop economically, they have this base, this matrix of terror organizations, which is also fed. And as Ambassador Puri was implying, it's basically state sponsored. So we have to address that issue. And what's happened, as we see through this century, at least 2008, 2016, 2019, our response now has become asymmetric. Because while they do things clandestinely, we believe we have the right. And in fact, it seems that implicitly the international community has accepted that the right of hot pursuit and the right even of retaliation of the sort we've done today, we did in Balakot, etc., are accepted. And I think we should take our government at its word when it says we were not targeting neither civilians nor Pakistan military. If there is collateral damage at all, that's the fault of the terrorists who are housed there, and particularly deep inside Punjab. So I think what we've done could be called fairly surgical. Of course, the Pakistan Information Minister Tarar was claiming on BBC earlier this morning that they've shot down 3 of our planes and a drone. We've denied that. And there's a briefing to be done shortly by the MEA and the MOD. Let's see what we get from there.
Yes, we are awaiting clarity from the MOD as well as the MEA. And of course, since morning, the Indian side has refuted those claims that have been made by ministers of the Pakistan government claiming that the Indian Air Force planes have been shot down. That has been refuted by the Indian government so far. Ambassador K.C. Singh also with us. Ambassador Singh, appreciate you joining us. Both Ambassador Puri as well as Mr. Bhojwani there talking about the message that this Operation Sindoor sends out, as well as the global response and the global reaction. Do you believe that given the fact that India has gone after very specific sites, 9 sites specifically, and has called its response non-escalatory, will make it harder for Pakistan to try and gather any kind of global support at this point in time?
I think globally it's an ideal time to be taking action like this because President Trump has created enough disruption and distraction. So Europeans are busy. Germans spent the whole of yesterday electing a chancellor. Canadian Prime Minister ticked off the president. So, all kinds of things are happening. But we must remember that Pakistan, we shouldn't just write it off because it's not a question. We always make a mistake between equating Pakistan with Pakistan's army. Pakistan's economy may be going downhill. Pakistan may be in economic distress. Pakistan army is in no distress. It's an army that controls the country, not the country controlling the army. And that's why that intemperate lecture by the army chief over 2 weeks ago, which was a signal that something was afoot and we should have been prepared for it. But I think what India has done, number one, having set a certain bar after Balakot, there's no way that India could not have reacted, and particularly a BJP-led government. It was expected that there will be a kinetic response. But we've combined it also with the putting Indus Water Treaty into abeyance, and also by using the gates of the rivers to control the water and then release them. So water has also become a weapon at a time that Pakistan requires. We can't completely stop the flow because they are run-of-river projects. But we can always reduce the flow and then increase it and cause disruption in Pakistan. So they have to take a call. And the other thing is that I don't think Indian planes, according to international reports, Indian planes did not cross the LOC or the Indian border. And that's why you'll see all the targets are within about 100, 120 kilometers of the border or the line of control. So what does Pakistan do? Now, Pakistan normally retaliates the same way. We've not attacked a military target. What target will they attack here where there are terrorists attacking Pakistan? We don't have terrorists attacking Pakistan. But the only problem is that they will go on a PR thing. Because in Muridke, their leadership is not there. LET is using a front of schools, hospitals, charitable organizations. We might have taken out their headquarters, but they'll make it a big case of innocents getting killed, civilians getting killed. Similarly, in Bahawalpur, Jaish-e-Mohammed is no longer. They were, in any case, they had moved out of there, but they would have emptied out. But nevertheless, they will have basic workers and headquarters. And I think an attack, even if it has limited loss in terms of life or buildings, a signal was important to send to these terrorist organizations that you can't hide in Pakistan behind charities and charitable organizations with the protection of the Pakistani army, and India will not come and touch you. Remember, even in during Balakot, we did cross the international border because Balakot is not in PoK, but that was still in areas contiguous to Kashmir. This time, it's plain and simple in the heart of Pakistan. Now, let's see what they do, and that is why I think India is expecting a reaction in the border areas within 100-odd kilometers. That's why we stopped the flights in Chandigarh and Rajasthan, Srinagar, and so on and so forth. And then India will have to take a call because you have to be ready for an escalatory response depending on what Pakistan does. Internationally, I don't see any problem. The world is distracted. And with Trumpian rules of the powerful deciding, if he's saying Russia did not attack Ukraine, Ukraine attacked Russia, he's got a history all topsy-turvy. He thinks that Pakistan was created 1,500 years ago. So you're dealing with a person who's completely mixed up on history, current relations, international relations. So keep him humored. I think he'll keep out of it.
Gentlemen, very important insights coming in. I will request you to hold on for just a moment. Our colleague Parikshit Luthra is standing by. There is a MOD press conference expected shortly. Parikshit, what are you picking up at this point in time, and how long before we hear from the government?
Well, the Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri has arrived at the National Media Center where that press conference is going. In fact, you can see his team just walking beside me right now. Having said that, there will be statements read out by the Army, Navy and the Air Force. The Foreign Secretary will be taking questions from the media. We believe they will also show maps of locations which have been targeted. Now, just to run our viewers through the significance of these targets, Bahawalpur, located around 100 kilometers from the international boundary, is the headquarters of Jaish-e-Mohammed. Murid K, 30 kilometers from the border opposite Samba, LET camp. Terrorists of the 26/11 Mumbai attacks came from here. You have Gulpur, 35 kilometers from LOC, Poonch, Rajouri. This is an area where the attack on Poonch on 20th April 2023 was perpetrated from. Then another LET camp in Savai, 30 kilometers inside Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Tangdhar sector. Bilal camp, which is a Jaish-e-Mohammed road launch pad. And LET, a Lashkar-e-Toiba Kotli camp, 15 kilometers from the LOC opposite Rajouri. Barnala camp, 10 kilometers from the LOC opposite Rajouri. Sarjal camp, Jaish-e-Mohammed camp, about 8 kilometers from the international border. And Mehmoona camp, 15 kilometers from the international border, which is a Hizbul Mujahideen training camp. What we've been told, that artillery guns and drones were used by the army to target 7 of these terror launch pads. Two launch pads, terror launch pads, which are 100 kilometers from the border, were targeted by the Indian Air Force. So we used precision munitions, and the Indian Army continuously saying that we acted with restraint. We did not target any economic or civilian or vital installation in Pakistan. This was targeted only at terror camps. Having said that, Pakistan has been resorting to very heavy shelling, artillery shelling, since 1 a.m. in the night. That was the time when the operation happened by India. We believe from sources that it lasted around 20 to 25 minutes. And immediately after that, Pakistan stepped up the level of firing and the kind of weaponry used in firing against India. Since then, artillery firing has not stopped. It continues. We believe 8 civilians have been killed and 2 people have been injured. These are the numbers coming from the Indian forces so far.
Well, thanks very much, Parikshit. We will, of course, come back to you as that press conference gets underway. Remember, as Parikshit was pointing out, a joint press conference, and we're just a couple of minutes away from that. But, Mr. Puri, if I could come back to you, one, of course, is what we're seeing happen in areas like Poonch, etc. And as per Indian Army sources, 8 civilian casualties being reported so far, 2 injured. What would you expect, at least along the border areas, as a response from Pakistan over the next few days?
Shireen, look, I have no doubt that the Pakistanis will respond in terms of shelling and so on and so forth. I am not so sure about their undertaking sort of surgical strikes or this kind of action within India, distance away from the border. I'll tell you why I think so. There was a need for us to retaliate in the way we did, also in terms of the domestic political opinion. In Pakistan, the opinion which is being created there is that, we are being unfairly targeted. They have detracted from the fact that they were the source of the terrorist act insofar as their own people are concerned. Secondly, let us not be not too very mindful. We should be mindful of the fact that the world knows, the world has awoken to this fact, and they are talking in terms of de-escalation, etc. While they may be distracted in other ways, and Ambassador KZ Singh is absolutely right, the world is in a topsy-turvy state. But the fact of the matter is that we are interested in interacting with them. They have a certain worldview on this entire thing. And so the question of keeping everything measured would be important, which is why we have been very strong in stressing that A, there's been no targeting of civilians, even military facilities, only terrorists, and B, that it is not an escalatory move, but really simply retaliating to what they did, which was an act of terror. This is particularly important. Of course, the rest depends on the Pakistanis. If they escalate, I have little doubt that the Indian armed forces are more than prepared for giving them a bloody nose, which they will remember for a fairly long time. But in a sense, for the moment, the ball is in their court.
The ball is in their court. But, to the point that was being made by Ambassador Singh as well, Mr. Bhotwani, if I could get you to comment on that. The role of the Pakistan army, as he said, the Pakistan government may find itself in a precarious fiscal position and its economy may be in dire straits, but the Pakistan army finds itself in no distress. And especially given the kind of commentary that's been coming in from the Pakistan army officials, do you believe that there is likely to be dissonance between what the government may wish to do and what the Pakistan army intends to do?
We'll have to see how it plays out, but my feeling personally is that the government will have to go along with what the army says. There's far too much political pressure on them to look strong and to look like they intend to retaliate, even though they may not want to. Of course, they've got more pressure internationally than we do. And that was evident in the recent UN Security Council meeting, where we were not present because they're non-permanent members. They called the meeting, but from today's reports, it appears that they didn't get what they wanted. And a lot of members of the Security Council were questioning them on what they were doing and what they planned to do about LET operations. Now, basically, the Pakistani army is in control of that country. They've proved it time and again, despite the popularity, the apparent obvious popularity that Imran Khan enjoys, and the fact that he should have won the election and been elected. But they managed to keep control of that country against all odds. So they clearly run the show. And this, let's not forget, is an absolute military operation. So there's no question that the civilians will be told to take a back seat, and they'll be told that the army will see what it wants to do. Of course, there will be constraints on the army, not just international. Even the fact that today India is far better prepared than it ever was. Forget about 2008, even then in 2019. We won't be losing any aircraft, as we haven't apparently, if the government is to be believed. And I think the army will have to reconsider anything it might want to do overtly. But that doesn't mean to say they will not continue with their covert operations, which I believe will not stop. Now, that is the longer game. They have to play and bring such pressure to bring on them, to bear on them, that they will have to roll back their support of these elements. While we here in India, in Kashmir, I was there last September, the atmosphere was fantastic. Clearly, there are either cells or rogue elements who have been, of course, sponsored by the Pakistani side, who are doing this on our side, okay? And we also have to keep in mind that there's Pakistani infiltration too. So that, I suspect, is going to continue. And we'll have to play the long game too, but with increasing pressure on Pakistan. And the army will just have to live with it or give up.
Well, the military response aside, Ambassador Singh, what would you expect as we play this out over the short to medium term? What would you now expect as the next steps from India?
So the next steps are you await what Pakistan does. I don't think the Pakistani army will just lump it. They have to retaliate symbolically. There will be a kinetic response. You remember, even in 2019, they supposedly attacked an Indian camp, but didn't actually hit the camp. They hit the outskirts of the camp. So it was a symbolic attack. It's possible that the attack may be more symbolic than real. Uh, After all, they can't go after these civilians in the Jammu and Kashmir area. They claim they are their brothers. So where do you attack? You attack into Indian Punjab, Indian Rajasthan. What is the target you choose? There is no one here who is supporting terror in Pakistan. But just to give you an example of the control the Pakistani army has, just about a week ago, their DGISI has been made their national security advisor. So he is sitting in the cabinet. They've not even left it to imagination that they control it. The Pakistan PM had gone to the army headquarters for a briefing just a couple of days ago. So I mean, this is an open secret. This is not something which is new. And Sharif is in any case a very weak prime minister, because the real powerful figure is Imran Khan, who's been put in jail by the Pakistan army, and the price for that, price that the Sharifs are paying for being made the prime minister and putting the tiger in the cage, is that they'll do exactly what the army wants. And we have an army chief for a change who appears very bigoted, appears very, very aggressive. And therefore, he'll have to now live up to his image. He'll have to take it to the next step. It's possible that if he's not able to play it well, he gets sacked. And that may be good for India and Pakistan. But at the moment, I think we'll have a chapter or two of this game yet left.
Yes, and of course, at this point in time, the Pakistani army chief, these are comments that are coming in from news agency Reuters, saying that 26 civilians have died and 46 have been injured on account of the Indian army action. There are also comments suggesting that the Pakistan defense minister said that if India halts operations, it will not take retaliatory action. But these are not verified comments. We're still trying to verify where this comment has been made and if at all it is factual or not. There is, of course, as much as military action, there is plenty of action online as well, social media abuzz at this point in time. So we need to verify those comments. But what Reuters is reporting, the Pakistan army chief is saying that the Indian action Operation Sindoor, 26 civilians dead, 46 injured at this point in time. Still waiting for the MEA and the defense press briefing. But gentlemen, thank you very, very much for joining us here this morning. We will, of course, come back to you for more insights as we hear from the government and bring you back on CNBC TV 18. But many thanks for joining us here with your views and your perspective on how you expect things to pan out from here. That's the situation at the moment. Standing by for the MEA and defense press briefing. The stock markets at this point are trending lower, but along expected lines. We will come back after a very quick break. Stay tuned.
Coming to your question, yes, it could have a risk of escalating into full-fledged war if Pakistan actually retaliates. But I don't think they would retaliate because they don't have the guts, they don't have the money, they don't have the funds, they don't have the ammunition, they don't have the wherewithal for that. So most certainly, if at all, the way they have been issuing statements that we've got हमारे पास परमाणु बम है, they have, they can.
Welcome back. Markets, of course, are down about 40 points. So up and down a few times over since the morning. We kind of sort of started with about a 50-point cut. We went up 50 points, and now we are back down about 40 points or so on the index. So that's the overall picture. Overall market breadth is trending slightly lower. Nothing major. 800 up and about 1700 stocks are lower. That's the NSE advanced decline ratio. A lot of stocks moving, and I'll get to that in a bit. By the way, we are, of course, waiting for the Operation Sindoor briefing. If you're tuning in, and of course, we've been sort of covering this for the last few hours, the Indian Armed Forces launched Operation Sindoor earlier this morning, hitting terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. These were focused strikes which were carried out on 9 terrorist infrastructure sites, and some of them, of course, are coming up on your screens as we speak. It's been a sort of by the state, as far as the statement is concerned, from the forces, from the ministry, etc., focused strikes, not targeted at civilians, but at military facilities, military sites, terrorist infrastructure, etc., which has been taken out as part of these strikes. Lots of information, of course, coming in. There are comments from around the world. President Trump earlier was asked about it. He said, well, he hopes it gets over soon. U.S. Secretary of State Rubio has essentially said that, he's kind of sort of in touch with both sides, and he hopes that this does not escalate further, and that there's a quick end to this, and so on and so forth. So, and of course, leaders here, cabinet ministers, many of them, of course, sort of expressing solidarity with the forces, and sort of talking about the operation which actually has been carried out in the early hours today. So this is the sort of latest as far as developments are concerned. As we wait for that particular briefing, and I think the briefing will be addressed by, there'll be the Foreign Secretary, there'll be a representative from the forces, actually from the Army and from the Air Force as well. As we wait for that, and that should happen quickly, just want to take a quick look at some stocks which are moving as well overall as far as the markets go. You basically have a Radico which will come up on your screen. It's turned sharply down now. It's now, I think, almost about 9% off the highs of the day. So that's a very large turn off the highs. The high was about 26.65, and we're at about 24.50 now on Radico. So I think that's the big turn off the day that we are seeing. Apart from that, I mean, I think you got BSC and Tata Motors and Paytm and Sonata Software and KEI, CG Power, so many names. Wellspun Living is another one, which I just want to point out. That's up 14%. I think that's on the back of the US-India FTA. I think those are visuals coming in from this briefing room, from the briefing hall in Delhi. And we should be able to cut across to it any moment now. So just waiting. As you can see, you've got, I think officials getting ready there to brief the media, which is gathered. I think the statement is going to be read out. Let's cut across.
नमस्कार। इस ब्रीफिंग में शामिल होने के लिए आप सभी का धन्यवाद। जैसा कि आप सभी जानते हैं, 22 अप्रैल 2025 को लश्कर तैयबा से संबंधित पाकिस्तानी और पाकिस्तान प्रशिक्षित आतंकवादियों ने भारत में जम्मू और कश्मीर के पहलगाम में भारतीय पर्यटकों पर बर्बरतापूर्ण हमला किया। 25 भारतीयों और एक नेपाली नागरिक को कायरतापूर्ण मौत के घाट उतार दिया गया। मुंबई के 26 नवंबर 2008 के हमलों के बाद यह भारत में हुई किसी आतंकवादी हमले में मारे गए आम नागरिकों की संख्या की दृष्टि से सबसे गंभीर घटना है। पहलगाम का हमला अत्यधिक बर्बरतापूर्ण था, जिसमें वहां मौजूद लोगों को करीब से और उनके परिवारों के सामने सिर पर गोली मारी गई। हत्या के इस तरीके से परिवार के सदस्यों को जानबूझकर आघात पहुंचाया गया। साथ ही उन्हें यह नसीहत भी दी गई कि वे वापस जाकर इस संदेश को पहुंचा दें। यह हमला स्पष्ट रूप से जम्मू और कश्मीर में बहाल हो रही सामान्य स्थिति को बाधित करने के उद्देश्य से किया गया था। चूंकि पर्यटन फिर से अर्थव्यवस्था का मुख्य आधार बन रहा था, इस हमले का मुख्य उद्देश्य इसे प्रतिकूल रूप से प्रभावित करना था। पिछले वर्ष आप सभी जानते हैं 2.25 करोड़ से अधिक पर्यटक कश्मीर आए थे। इस हमले का मुख्य उद्देश्य इसलिए संभवतः यह था कि इस संघ राज्य क्षेत्र में विकास और प्रगति को नुकसान पहुंचाकर इसे पिछड़ा बनाए रखा जाए और पाकिस्तान से लगातार होने वाले सीमा पार आतंकवाद के लिए उपजाऊ जमीन बनाने में सहायता की जाए। हमले का यह तरीका जम्मू और कश्मीर और शेष राष्ट्र दोनों में सांप्रदायिक दंगे भड़काने के उद्देश्य से भी प्रेरित था। इसका श्रेय सरकार और भारत के सभी नागरिकों को दिया जाना चाहिए कि इन प्रयासों को विफल कर दिया गया। एक समूह ने खुद को रेजिस्टेंस फ्रंट TRF कहते हुए इस हमले की जिम्मेदारी ली है। यह समूह संयुक्त राष्ट्र द्वारा प्रतिबंधित पाकिस्तानी आतंकवादी समूह लश्कर तैयबा से जुड़ा हुआ है। यह उल्लेखनीय है कि भारत ने मई और नवंबर 2024 में संयुक्त राष्ट्र की 1267 कमेटी की सैंक्शंस मॉनिटरिंग टीम को अर्धवार्षिक रिपोर्ट प्रस्तुत की थी, जिसमें TRF के बारे में साफ इनपुट दिए गए थे। इससे पाकिस्तान स्थित आतंकवादी समूहों के लिए कवर के रूप में TRF की भूमिका सामने आई थी। इससे पहले भी दिसंबर 2023 में भारत ने इस टीम को लश्कर तैयबा और जैश ए मोहम्मद के बारे में सूचित किया था, जो TRF जैसे छोटे आतंकवादी समूहों के माध्यम से अपनी गतिविधियों को संचालित कर रहे हैं। इस संबंध में 25 अप्रैल को UN सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल प्रेस वक्तव्य में TRF के संदर्भ को हटाने के लिए पाकिस्तान के दबाव पर भी ध्यान दिया जाना चाहिए। पहलगाम आतंकवादी हमले की जांच से पाकिस्तान के साथ आतंकवादियों के संपर्क उजागर हुए हैं। रेजिस्टेंस फ्रंट द्वारा किए गए दावे और लश्कर तैयबा से ज्ञात सोशल मीडिया हैंडल द्वारा इसको रीपोस्ट किया जाना इसकी पुष्टि करता है। चश्मदीद गवाहों और विभिन्न जांच एजेंसियों को उपलब्ध अन्य सूचनाओं के आधार पर हमलावरों की पहचान भी हुई है। हमारी इंटेलिजेंस ने इस टीम के योजनाकारों और उनके समर्थकों की जानकारी जुटाई है। इस हमले की रूपरेखा भारत में सीमा पार आतंकवाद को अंजाम देने के पाकिस्तान के लंबे ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड से भी जुड़ी हुई है, जिसके लिखित और स्पष्ट दस्तावेज उपलब्ध हैं। पाकिस्तान दुनिया भर में आतंकवादियों के लिए एक शरण स्थल के रूप में पहचान बना चुका है। यहां अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर प्रतिबंधित आतंकवादी सजा पाने से बचे रहते हैं। इसके अलावा पाकिस्तान ने इस मुद्दे पर विश्व और फाइनेंशियल एक्शन टास्क फोर्स जैसे अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मंचों को जानबूझकर गुमराह करने के लिए भी जाना जाता है। साजिद मीर का मामला, जिसमें इस आतंकवादी को पाकिस्तान ने मृत घोषित कर दिया था और फिर अंतर्राष्ट्रीय दबाव के परिणाम स्वरूप वो जीवित पाया गया, इसका सबसे स्पष्ट उदाहरण है। यह स्वाभाविक है कि पहलगाम में हुए इस हमले से जम्मू और कश्मीर के साथ साथ भारत के अन्य भागों में भी आक्रोश देखा गया। हमलों के बाद भारत सरकार ने स्वाभाविक रूप से पाकिस्तान के साथ संबंधों को लेकर कुछ कदम उठाए। आप सभी उन निर्णयों से अवगत हैं जिसकी घोषणा 23 अप्रैल को की गई थी। तथापि यह आवश्यक समझा गया कि 22 अप्रैल के हमले के अपराधियों और उनके योजनाकारों को न्याय के कटघरे में लाया जाए। हमलों के एक पखवाड़े के बाद भी पाकिस्तान द्वारा अपने क्षेत्र या अपने नियंत्रण वाले क्षेत्रों में आतंकवादियों की इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के विरुद्ध कार्यवाही करने के लिए कोई स्पष्ट कदम नहीं उठाया गया है। उल्टे वो इनकार करने और आरोप लगाने में ही लिप्त रहा है। पाकिस्तान आधारित आतंकवादी मॉड्यूल्स पर हमारी खुफिया निगरानी ने संकेत दिया है कि भारत के विरुद्ध आगे भी हमले हो सकते हैं। अतः इनको रोकना और इनसे निपटना दोनों को बेहद आवश्यक समझा गया। आज सुबह, जैसा कि आपको ज्ञात होगा, भारत ने इस तरह के सीमा पार हमलों का जवाब देने और उन्हें रोकने तथा उनका प्रतिरोध करने के अपने अधिकार का प्रयोग किया है। यह कार्यवाही नपीतुली, नॉन एस्केलेटरी, आनुपातिक और जिम्मेदारीपूर्ण है। यह आतंकवाद की इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को समाप्त करने और भारत में भेजे जाने वाले संभावित आतंकवादियों को अक्षम बनाने पर केंद्रित है। आपको यह भी स्मरण होगा कि 25 अप्रैल 2025 को संयुक्त राष्ट्र सुरक्षा परिषद ने पहलगाम आतंकवादी हमले पर एक प्रेस वक्तव्य जारी किया था, जिसमें आतंकवाद के इस निंदनीय कार्य के अपराधियों, आयोजकों, फाइनेंसरों और प्रायोजकों को जवाबदेह ठहराने और उन्हें न्याय के दायरे में लाने की आवश्यकता पर जोर दिया गया था। भारत की आज की इस कार्रवाई को इसी संदर्भ में देखा जाना चाहिए। Good morning. Thank you all for joining this briefing. As you are all aware, on April 22, 2025, Pakistani and Pakistan-trained terrorists belonging to the Lashkar-e-Taiba carried out a savage attack on Indian tourists at Pahalgam in Jammu and Kashmir in India. They murdered 26 people, including one national of Nepal, causing the largest number of civilian casualties in a terrorist attack in India since the 26 November 2008 attacks in Mumbai. The attack in Pahalgam was marked by extreme barbarity, with the victims mostly killed with headshots from close range and in front of their families. Family members were deliberately traumatized through the manner of the killing, accompanied by the exhortation that they should take back the message. The attack was clearly driven by the objective of undermining the normalcy returning to Jammu and Kashmir. In particular, it was designed to impact the mainstay of the economy, tourism, with a record 23 million tourists visiting the valley last year. The calculation, presumably, was that harming growth and development in the Union Territory would help keep it backward and create fertile ground for continued cross-border terrorism from Pakistan. The manner of the attack was also driven by an objective of provoking communal discord, both in Jammu and Kashmir and the rest of the nation. It is to the credit of the government and the people of India that these designs were foiled. A group calling itself the Resistance Front has claimed responsibility for the attack. This group is a front for the UN-proscribed Pakistani terrorist group Lashkar-e-Taiba. It is notable that India had given inputs about the TRF in the half-yearly report to the monitoring team of the UN's 1267 Sanctions Committee in May and November 2024, bringing out its role as a cover for Pakistan-based terrorist groups. Earlier too, in December 2023, India had informed the monitoring team about Lashkar and Jaish-e-Mohammed operating through small terror groups such as the TRF. Pakistan's pressure to remove references to TRF in the April 25 UN Security Council press statement is notable in this regard. Investigations into the Pahalgam terror attack have brought out the communication notes of terrorists in and to Pakistan. The claims made by the Resistance Front and their reposting by known social media handles of the Lashkar-e-Taiba speak for themselves. Identification of the attackers based on eyewitness accounts as well as other information available to law enforcement agencies has also progressed. Our intelligence has developed an accurate picture of the planners and backers of this team. The features of this attack also tie in with Pakistan's long track record of perpetrating cross-border terror in India, which is well documented and beyond question. Pakistan also has a well-deserved reputation as a haven for terrorists from around the world, with internationally proscribed terrorists enjoying impunity there. In addition, Pakistan has been known to willfully mislead the world and international forums, such as the Financial Action Task Force, on this issue. The Sajid Mir case, in which this terrorist was declared dead and then, in response to international pressure, brought back to life, found alive and arrested, is the most glaring example. The latest attack in Pahalgam has understandably generated deep anger in Jammu and Kashmir and in other parts of India. Following the attacks, the government of India naturally responded with a set of initial measures relating to our engagement with Pakistan. You're all aware of the decisions that were announced on the 23rd of April. However, it was deemed essential that the perpetrators and planners of the 22nd April attack be brought to justice. Despite a fortnight having passed since the attacks, there has been no demonstrable step from Pakistan to take action against the terrorist infrastructure on its territory or on territory under its control. Instead, all it has indulged in are denials and allegations. Our intelligence monitoring of Pakistan-based terrorist modules indicated that further attacks against India were impending. There was thus a compulsion both to deter and to preempt. Earlier this morning, as you would be aware, India exercised its right to respond and preempt as well as deter more such cross-border attacks. These actions were measured, non-escalatory, proportionate, and responsible. They focused on dismantling the terrorist infrastructure and disabling terrorists likely to be sent across to India. You would also recall that the Security Council on 25th April 2025 had issued a press statement on the Pahalgam terror attack, underlining, and I quote, the need to hold perpetrators, organizers, financiers, and sponsors of this reprehensible act of terrorism accountable and bring them to justice, unquote. India's latest actions should be seen in this context. Joining me for this briefing on our actions earlier this morning are Colonel Sophia Qureshi and Wing Commander Vyomika Singh. I will request them to share some details regarding Operation Sindoor with all of you.
सुप्रभात देवियों और सज्जनों, मैं कर्नल सोफिया कुरैशी और मेरे साथ विंग कमांडर व्योमिका सिंह आज आपको 6 से 7 मई 2025 की रात 1:05 से 1:30 बजे के बीच भारतीय सशस्त्र बलों द्वारा अंजाम दिए गए ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के बारे में जानकारी देंगे। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर 22 अप्रैल को पहलगाम में हुए विभत्स आतंकवादी हमले के शिकार मासूम नागरिकों व उनके परिवारों को न्याय देने के लिए लॉन्च किया गया था। इस कार्रवाई में 9 टेररिस्ट कैंप्स को टारगेट किया गया और पूरी तरह से इसे बर्बाद किया गया। पाकिस्तान में पिछले 3 दशकों से टेरर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का निर्माण हो रहा है। इसमें रिक्रूटमेंट, इंडोक्ट्रिनेशन सेंटर्स, ट्रेनिंग एरियाज व लॉन्च पैड शामिल थे, जो पाकिस्तान और पाक अधिकृत जम्मू कश्मीर PoJK दोनों में फैले हैं।
Operation Sindoor was launched by Indian Armed Forces to deliver justice to the victims of Pahalgam terror attack and their families. 9 terrorist camps were targeted and successfully destroyed. Over the last 3 decades, Pakistan has systematically built terror infrastructure. It is a complex web of recruitment and indoctrination centers, training areas for initial and refresher courses, and launch pads for handlers. These camps are located both in Pakistan as well as Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir areas. Some of the well-known training camps are located, as you can see on the screen. They are distributed from Savai Nala in the north, counting to approximately 21, ending at Bhagalpur to the south.
इन लक्ष्यों का चयन विश्वसनीय इंटेलिजेंस सूचनाओं के आधार पर हुआ ताकि आतंक गतिविधियों की रीढ़ तोड़ी जा सके, और यह खास ध्यान दिया गया कि निर्दोष नागरिकों और सिविलियन इंस्टॉलेशन को नुकसान न पहुंचे।
The selection of these targets for Operation Sindoor was based on credible intelligence inputs and role of these facilities in perpetrating the terror activities. The locations were so selected to avoid damage to civilian infrastructures and loss of any civilian lives. This was done with due diligence, and the camps selected for targeting and their engagement will now be shown to you one by one.
PoJK के टारगेट मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगी। सबसे पहले सवाई नाला कैंप मुजफ्फराबाद, जो कि PoJK के लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल से 30 किलोमीटर दूर है। यह एक लश्कर तोयबा का ट्रेनिंग सेंटर था। 20 अक्टूबर 2024 सोनमर्ग, 24 अक्टूबर 24 गुलमर्ग, 22 अप्रैल 2025 पहलगाम, इन हमलों के आतंकियों ने यहीं से प्रशिक्षण लिया था। सैयदना बिलाल कैंप मुजफ्फराबाद, यह एक जैश ए मोहम्मद का स्टेजिंग एरिया है। यह हथियार, विस्फोटक और जंगल सर्वाइवल ट्रेनिंग का केंद्र भी था। गुलपुर कैंप कोटली, यह LOC से 30 किलोमीटर दूर था। लश्कर तोयबा का बेस था, जो रजौरी पुंछ में सक्रिय था। 20 अप्रैल 2023 को पुंछ में और 9 जून 2024 को तीर्थ यात्रियों के बस हमले में यहीं से आतंकी को ट्रेन किया गया था। बरनाला कैंप बिम्बर, ये LOC से 9 किलोमीटर दूर है। यहाँ पर हथियार, हैंडलिंग, IED व जंगल सर्वाइवल का प्रशिक्षण केंद्र था। अब्बास कैंप कोटली, यह LOC से 13 किलोमीटर दूर है। लश्कर तोयबा का फिदाइन यहाँ तैयार होता था। इसकी कैपेसिटी 15 टेररिस्ट को ट्रेन करने की थी। अब मैं पाकिस्तान के अंदर के टारगेट से अवगत कराना चाहूँगी। पहला, सर्जल कैंप सियालकोट, यह अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सीमा से 6 किलोमीटर की दूरी पर है, सांबा कठुआ के सामने। मार्च 2025 में जम्मू एंड कश्मीर पुलिस के 4 जवानों की जो हत्या की गई थी, उन आतंकवादियों को इसी जगह पर ट्रेन किया गया था। दूसरा, महमूना जाया कैंप सियालकोट, यह 18 से 12 किलोमीटर आईबी से दूर था। हिजबुल मुजाहिदीन का बहुत बड़ा कैंप था। यह कठुआ जम्मू क्षेत्र में आतंक फैलाने का नियंत्रण केंद्र था। पठानकोट एयरफोर्स बेस पर किया गया हमला भी इसी कैंप से प्लान और डायरेक्ट किया गया था। मरकज ताइबा मुरीद के, यह आईबी से 18 से 25 किलोमीटर दूरी पर है। 2008 के मुंबई हमले के आतंकी भी यहीं से प्रशिक्षित हुए थे। अजमल कसब व डेविड हेडली भी यहाँ ट्रेन हुए थे।
आगे दूसरा आया। टारगेट 10 हुआ है सर अभी। टारगेट 10 हुआ, एंक्लोजर सेम ही है। 7 इट इज हिट द टारगेट। हाँ हाँ। तीसरा आ गया सर, इम्पैक्ट।
मरकज सुभान अल्लाह भावलपुर, यह इंटरनेशनल बाउंड्री से 100 किलोमीटर दूर है। जैश ए मोहम्मद का मुख्यालय था। यहाँ पर रिक्रूटमेंट, ट्रेनिंग व इंडॉक्ट्रिनेशन का केंद्र भी था। शीर्ष आतंकी अक्सर यहाँ आते थे। मैं आप सबको बताना चाहती हूँ कि किसी भी सैन्य ठिकाने का निशाना नहीं बनाया गया और अभी तक किसी तरह की नागरिक क्षति की रिपोर्ट नहीं है। धन्यवाद। जय हिंद।
The strike on the terror camps were undertaken through precision capability, as shown to you. A niche technology weapons with careful selection of warheads was ensured so that there will be no collateral damage. The point of impact in each of the target was a specific building or a group of buildings. All the targets were neutralized with clinical efficiency, and the results reiterate the professionalism of the Indian Armed Forces in the planning and execution of their operations. No military establishments were targeted. India has demonstrated considerable restraint in its response. However, it must be said that the Indian Armed Forces are fully prepared to respond to Pakistani misadventures, if any, that will escalate this situation. Jai Hind, and thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends in the media, I ask your indulgence today in view of the fact that this is still an evolving situation. We will therefore not be able to take questions and answers today, but we will come back for more updates and more briefings shortly. Thank you all very much for joining us this morning. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Well, I have to say that is an absolutely fantastic briefing by the armed forces clinical operation, and the briefing was also clinical, precise, to the point. And that small things. I mean, the video played, and you could see the operation being carried out. So I think leaves nothing in doubt in terms of what has happened. The visuals which played on. we also could hear the operations chatter which was going on, I guess, while the operation was actually going on. So I think, a great briefing, and of course, no questions, as the Foreign Secretary towards the end said, this is an ongoing, evolving situation, and there'll be an opportunity for Q&A later. But I think this really adds credibility to what India has done last night, early this morning, in terms of the strikes that it's carried out across 9 states. 9 sites to take out this terrorist infrastructure. So very pointed information being presented, how many kilometers each of these sites were from the international border, and what has been done, what actually was happening from in each of these locations. Examples, of course, given of which of these bases were used in which of the earlier sort of terrorist attacks in the country. And really, a really well-crafted briefing, if there is one. The entire presentation began, of course, with visuals of all the terrorist attacks that India has suffered. I think it started with the Parliament attacks back in 2004, the Mumbai attacks in 2008, and so on and so forth. And of course, and then it kind of sort of, opened up to the operation that is Operation Sindoor, which was carried out in the wee hours of today. Really on the front foot, putting out what we've done with the explanation, with the evidence. And of course, now I think little doubt in terms of what really has happened, why we've done it. I think it's for the world to see really which is coming through. I think towards the end, there was this one comment that, we are prepared in case Pakistan tries any misadventure, tries to kind of retaliate in any way, to do anything. I mean, there will be a well-adjusted response if that were to happen, and we are ready to deliver that response. I think extremely well-crafted briefing, I have to say. The market, by the way, has been, of course, paying attention. I think this is the big story, the only story, I would say, down about 25 points on the Nifty. Nigel.
Well, that's right. Symbolic women armed forces as well, yeah. Addressing the media out there, not leaving anything to doubt, because in the past, the enemy has been... they have been leaving various loose ends. Here we're putting out evidence out there as well, extremely well-crafted media interaction, and also towards the end saying that this is our action that we've taken as of now. But if Pakistan wants to do anything adventurous on the border, we are prepared to take them on yet again. So strong message being sent out with the evidence out there. And in fact, they can't be in denial any longer. We've put out the evidence. We've said what we have done. Now, hopefully, there is some de-escalation from here on. But in case, they choose to retaliate, then our armed forces are ready. And I think the markets as well, more or less flattish, with a mild negative bias, which is par for the course.
Absolutely. And I think, we'll of course get you more opinion after this briefing. Now that we've heard officially from the government, we'll try and get more reactions through the course of the day. What we'll do is we'll take a quick commercial break as well, so I have to do that. But coverage on Operation Sindoor and markets, of course, continues. Lots of earnings to track as well, so coming back with all of that.
On the army, not just international, even the fact that today India is far better prepared than it ever was. Forget about 2008, even then in 2019. We won't be losing any aircraft, as we haven't apparently. if the government is to be believed. And I think the army will have to reconsider anything it might want to do overtly. But that doesn't mean to say they will not continue with their covert operations, which I believe will not stop. Now, that is the longer game they have to play and bring such pressure to bring on them, to bear on them, that they will have to roll back their support of these elements. While we here in India, in Kashmir, I was there last September, the atmosphere was fantastic. Clearly, there are either cells or rogue elements who have been, of course, sponsored by the Pakistani side, who are doing this on our side, okay? And we also have to keep in mind that there's Pakistani infiltration too. So that, I suspect, is going to continue. And we'll have to play the long game too, but with increasing pressure on Pakistan. And the army will just have to live with it or give up.
Well, the military response aside, Ambassador Singh, what would you expect as we play this out over the short to medium term? What would you now expect as the next steps from India?
So the next steps are you await what Pakistan does. I don't think the Pakistani army will just lump it. They have to retaliate symbolically. There will be a kinetic response. You remember, even in 2019, they supposedly attacked an Indian camp, but didn't actually hit the camp. They hit the outskirts of the camp. So it was a symbolic attack. It's possible that the attack may be more symbolic than real. After all, they can't go after these civilians in the Jammu and Kashmir area. They claim they are their brothers. So where do you attack? You attack into Indian Punjab, Indian Rajasthan. What is the target you choose? There is no one here who is supporting terror in Pakistan. But just to give you an example of the control the Pakistani army has, just about a week ago, their DG ISI has been made their national security advisor. So he is sitting in the cabinet. So they've not even left it to imagination that they control it. The Pakistan PM had gone to the army headquarters for a briefing just a couple of days ago. So I mean, this is an open secret. This is not something which is new. And Sharif is in any case a very weak prime minister, because the real powerful figure is Imran Khan, who's been put in jail by the Pakistan army, and the price that the Sharifs are paying for being made the prime minister and putting the tiger in the cage, is that they'll do exactly what the army wants. And we have an army chief for a change who appears very bigoted, appears very, very aggressive. And therefore, he'll have to now live up to his image. He'll have to take it to the next step. It's possible that if he's not able to play it well, he gets sacked. And that may be good for India and Pakistan. But at the moment, I think we'll have a chapter or two of this game yet left.
Yes, and of course, at this point in time, the Pakistani army chief, these are comments that are coming in from news agency Reuters, saying that 26 civilians have died and 46 have been injured on account of the Indian army action. There are also comments suggesting that the Pakistan defense minister said that if India halts operations, it will not take retaliatory action. But these are not verified comments. We're still trying to verify where this comment has been made and if at all it is factual or not. There is, of course, as much as military action, there is plenty of action online as well, social media abuzz at this point in time. So we need to verify those comments. But what Reuters is reporting, the Pakistan army chief is saying that the Indian action Operation Sindoor, 26 civilians dead, 46 injured at this point in time. Still waiting for the MEA and the defense press briefing. But gentlemen, thank you very, very much for joining us here this morning. We will, of course, come back to you for more insights as we hear from the government and bring you back on CNBC TV 18. But many thanks for joining us here with your views and your perspective on how you expect things to pan out from here. That's the situation at the moment. Standing by for the MEA and defense press briefing. The stock markets at this point are trending lower, but along expected lines. We will come back after a very quick break. Stay tuned.
do nothing. It's not that easy to go nuclear. And we have only destroyed their terror camps. We have only destroyed that. We haven't gone into a full-fledged, full-blown war as yet. And let me tell you, if Pakistan is thinking that we have probably stopped and we are satisfied from here, we might have, we may not have. Let us keep them in tender hooks. Let them keep them in suspense. Let them keep them hanging. Let them keep them guessing. Let us keep on that mental torture in Pakistan alive. So they are under stress right now. They were very sure that their ministers had issued a statement a couple of days back that within 36 hours, India is going to strike us. They will do a military action upon us. If the intelligence was so strong and so good, why couldn't they analyze an intelligence report that the BLA was going to hijack their Jafar Express? Secondly, their member of parliament has been caught clearly saying on telephone that if at all the attack escalates, if there is a full-fledged attack, I will run away to United Kingdom. He has said that very clearly. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, he gives a hate speech. He gives a very jingoism statement from the Indus Valley river from that side, saying ya to unka khoon bahega, ya to pani bahega. The next day, this joker sent his family to Canada. Their ministers and their generals have been sending their families abroad. The Chief of Army Staff, General Asim Munir, who has been compared to the dreaded terrorist Osama bin Laden itself, not by us, by America has compared him. In fact, they said Osama bin Laden used to give orders from his cave. Here, the military general of Pakistan, he gives orders from his AC office, from his mahal, from his palace. Now, he gave a statement. He gives a hate speech. He talks about the two-nation theory, about Hindus and Muslims in Pakistan. He tried to create a divide. Why? I would like to ask, are there no Hindus in Pakistan? Are there no Hindus in Pakistan Army? Are there no minorities there? If this is the case, if this is the way they are going to be treating their minorities there, it is most sorry to say the least. He tried to bring tension in Bangladesh. He didn't analyze. His speech will become it will escalate to such a level. 4 days after his hate speech, his rubbish speech, he comes, there is a dreaded terrorist, dastardly, cowardly terrorist attack.
We're going to come back to you. We're going to come back to you. Let me just get in Air Marshal Manmohan Bahadur, who's also joining us at this point. Air Marshal Bahadur, let me begin by asking you, there are reports that the S-400 air defense system has been activated in this. Could you give us a sense if we can assume that? Of course, this was an air defense system available at our disposal, and we would probably do that. But could you give us a sense of how things are flowing right now and how this strike would have been carried out? Because we believe that all the three services have worked together. So if you were to give a perspective to our viewers on what has happened on the ground, could you explain?
Good morning, first of all. And it's good that we have launched the retaliatory strikes. And when you do a strike like this, all the air defense elements would have been brought into focus. So there is no doubt whether S-400 came in or didn't come in. Yes, it would have come in, as would have all other air defense elements, which are part of the Indian Air Force air defense establishment. So that's how, and they would have been churning right from the beginning before the strikes went in. Now, we have to be careful because it's very early days right now, and at 10 o'clock we come to know a little more. What sort of weapons were used? And since we have already said that it is not struck, we have not struck any economic or Pakistani targets, only terrorist targets, we expect Pakistan not to respond. Now, having said that, knowing the way Pakistan is structured, we've got to be ready with a retaliatory response. Because the public opinion in Pakistan would not take that as if nothing is coming from the other side. So I'm sure our air defenses are ready. Our fighters, our air defense systems would be on the ball right now. And we wait to see what happens next. In the meantime, I'm sure the diplomatic lines are churning. There would be diplomatic talk going on to ensure that this does not escalate and Pakistan does not do anything foolish. We've exercised our right of self-defense. That's important. We must understand this, that it was a terrorist attack on Indian subjects and that one person from Nepal, and we have struck back, exercising our right of self-defense.
Right. Marshal Bahadur, given the sort of mock drills that we've been undertaking and likely to undertake over the next couple of days itself, what do you think is our preparedness if things were to escalate? And what, according to you, would be the first couple of signs of any potential escalation or de-escalation in your experience? What are the things that you would be watching out for?
What I understand is that there already been some heavy shelling across the border from the army side. But the fact that we have ordered...
There is a point of view like that. Would that be one way to look at it?
Slightly difficult because, again, the entire process is being guided by legal advice on the matter. So, actually, as a COC, I think, and the COC would take a call based on all these factors therein. There are legal counsel, advising on the matter, and possibly going forward, we'll hear more on that.
Management there of Bank of Baroda, they're pretty much the accident of yesterday's trading session after its numbers ending almost 10.5% lower. The stock, though, has recovered slightly from the lows after that management comment, after the interaction there with Lata. But just before we take that break, just pull up the India Wix. And at one point, the Wix was up close to levels of around 20. That has seen a sharp fall from the highs after the briefing that has taken place from India with regards to the retaliatory attacks that have taken place. The Wix now down around 3% compared to earlier levels that were touching close to 20. So keep an eye out on the Wix as well. Take a short break. Up next, we'll be joined by the management of Newgen Software to discuss their results and the road ahead for the company. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Newgen Software recently reported their Q4 numbers. The company saw the net profit surge nearly 22%. Margins expanded. The top line growth was close to about 14%, but that is lower than the 20% run rate that the company has been enjoying. In fact, Q4 was a 14% revenue growth. Q3 was 18%. And prior to that, the company's top line growth used to be close to about 20%. In fact, even higher than that. Virender Jeet, CEO of Newgen Software, is now with us on the show. And just to put it in context, numbers came out on Friday during market hours. Virender, thank you very much for joining in. First, if you could talk about your top line growth. There seems to be a bit of a slowdown, 14.5% in Q4. What led to the weakness compared to prior quarters' historical growth rates? What can you guide in FY26? Can you maintain a 20% sort of a run rate or do better?
Good morning and thank you for having me out. We have constantly grown at 20% for many years. Almost from 2013, it has been the trajectory apart from a couple of years. So there's just to look at in the near future, there's no reason why we should not be able to maintain that. Having said that, looking at what has happened over last 8 quarters, also I think last year we had grown at almost 40% on Q4. I think it was a very heavy base. For the year, we did grow at 20%, which is in line with what our expectation is. We did expect to really grow by a few more percentages, but I think we had some amount of deal slippages and other things, which normally happens in the business. We closed a good year. In fact, as you rightly said, overall we grew at 20%, our margins expanded. We had 40% growth on license, which is actually determinant to our future growth because the downstream revenue kicks in. And also we had phenomenal 62 deal wins and the new logos, not only the deals from existing accounts, but especially from the new ones. And I think it was broad-based, and US fired. We did 20% growth out there. APAC fired in a big way. I think it has been healthy. What has happened is, as we are slightly increasing the number, the lopsidedness of revenue growth, which used to be happening, the Q4 and Q3 used to be almost around 60-65% of our business, has now moderated to around 55% of our business, which is, I think this phenomena will continue. We may have higher growth quarters in Q1, Q2, because relatively the numbers of Q1 and Q2 are lower. And Q3, Q4 may not be at the same percentage point, but at an annual level, we'll continue to maintain the growth momentum.
Okay, so you're saying that 20% growth run rate should continue FY26 onwards, as you did in FY25. The Q4 moderation in the top line was on account of a higher base and certain deal slippages, which are normal. It's not to do with the macro uncertainty that we're seeing. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's nothing, as of now, we don't see any uncertainty in the business, or nothing is coming up on the radar.
Virender, good morning. Thank you for joining in. Now that you're saying your FY26 will also continue to grow at 20%, but what about your other businesses, right? Because the banking vertical growth slowed to 10%. Your bookings for the full year grew at only 10%. In FY24, they were up 23%. What is the current situation that you are witnessing on the ground? I know you mentioned that you are not seeing any uncertainties as of now, but are you seeing any delays in spending, delays in decision making, considering all the uncertainties that are prevailing around the globe right now?
The way we see our business, we are pretty diversified. This is one thing very unique to us. If you look at our businesses are quite evenly spread around India, Middle East, Africa, US, and APAC. So a single territory pain or a kind of an uncertainty we don't see the impact that drastically at other companies do. The other thing is also it's diversified across 3 verticals now. Though banking is a larger part of that, but also the insurance and government are becoming sizable. And then if you look at the client concentrations are very, very low. I think it's quite spread. We do business with almost 500 clients, and nothing is very materially big. We still are a kind of a relatively smaller company. And typically our deals are more tactical and strategic. They're not really large strategic deals for the clients where they could have an impact of non-decision making. We still, they're championed around a cause which is very urgent for an enterprise. And we have seen both an upturn where we are servicing growth or we are servicing optimization or cost. We have relevant use cases in the market. I don't see any challenges as of now. But having said that, right now the levels of uncertainty in the market are very, very different, which nobody has seen, and we don't know how the whole market will shape. Right now, we don't see those things coming to us, but I think we'll have to wait and watch.
Okay, your deal bookings are, I think, at 1,664 crore for the full year. That's a growth of 10%, and this is lower than the 20% or 20% plus growth that you had in the prior quarter. What's the reason for that? And will this not make achieving that 20% growth challenging for you in the subsequent year?
Yeah, I think this is a good indicator, but not the only indicator. Most of our, the way we look at our business at the beginning of the year, almost 70% of our business comes from the contracts, which is either in renewal stages or which has been already booked, which we call business in control. We are roughly at a business in control number of 1,250 crores, which is almost 20% up than last year. And then we do have to get new deals and new logos and new license wins this year, which is not going to be significantly different than what we have done last year. So while the order book of a previous year is an indicator, but it's not the only indicator. More the outcome of this year will determine about the sales which happens in this year and the license revenue we realize on that. year. Our Q1, Q2, Q3 order books were leaner. You're absolutely right. But Q4, our order book on a year-on-year grew by almost 27%. So I think there's a change in that trajectory also. And we think in this year we should be able to build the businesses and realize the revenue on that front.
Okay. US, your investments in US seem to be yielding results now. I think your US revenue growth was about 39%. You added 10 new logos in US across various sectors, banking, healthcare, insurance segments. When will that, even the deal wins were fairly strong. What is the outlook on US, the kind of growth? How much will it contribute? What is the growth that you anticipate in FY26? And when will the deal wins, one in US, flow through into your top line? When will they start getting executed?
You're absolutely right. I think we have been investing for a very, very long time, and it has been a hard work. And I think we have built a successful customer base of around 70 customers in US now. And last quarter, you're absolutely right, was a good quarter for us. We had more than 10 wins, and these wins are typically in larger accounts. So we have pivoted from smaller accounts in smaller banks and insurance to larger entities. A lot of our deals, do the revenue starts flowing in 1 year to 2 years. That's the time frame, and the deal gets almost consumed in that kind of a thing. But since our downstream revenues from these deals also are about renewals, expansion of licenses and those things, they will continue to grow as accounts with us. Last quarter, from the number point in terms of the number of deals, has been the first quarter we have. I think we'll have to wait and watch for a few more quarters to see how much of strong base and trend we have established. But surely our investments in insurance vertical and health, which we started around 12, 13 months back, have started yielding results. Now we have got successful wins in both the areas. And banking, we keep on, again, grinding and getting few more deals out there. So if all three fire, then we'll always keep on repeating such performance. But I think we'll have to wait and watch how permanent it is this. We think the US should lead the future growth of the company. So predominantly, I think we expect that in next 2-3 years, US becomes the larger market share where we come. But I think it's work in progress, and we'll have to.
How much would US contribute?
You see, generally, what I think right now, the US is roughly around 22-24.5% of our revenue. But while as globally, the spend for our kind of areas, US is around 60% of that. And right now, our sizes are small, but as our size becomes more close to a larger company, the US should be in the same range of almost contributing 50% of our revenue.
All right, Virinder, we'll hold you to these numbers. There are still a lot more questions to ask you, but running out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today. Wish you good luck for the rest of the year as well. There is a management there on Newgen Software, confident that the US could become the primary contributor to their revenue in the next 2 to 3 years. Take a short break. The management of JBM Auto joins us on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Continuing with earnings conversations, then Nishant Arya, the Vice Chairman and Managing Director of JBM Auto, is joining in now to discuss the road ahead for the company. Nishant, good morning. Thank you for joining in. It's a marginal deviation, but you had guided for 6,000 crores of revenue in FY25. You've ended at 5.5. But what are you penciling in now for FY26 with the kind of situations that you are facing on ground right now?
No, I think we are gunning towards, again, the 6,500 crores, 6 to 6,500 crores revenue for FY26. As you would see, the EBITDA percentage has grown substantially, almost 1% from FY24 to 13.3%. And clearly, we are seeing that today the kind of market scenario for e-mobility is growing substantially, and we are having a very strong order book. Just recently, our tie-up and alliance with Hitachi is also going to play a critical role in enhancing analytics and performance of our EV products with their global technologies. And I see that now with the UK-India FTA, a lot of new market opportunities will also open up for Indian companies like us who are very well poised with the whole EV ecosystem.
I'll get to your UK exposure in just a bit, Nishant, but just to confirm numbers, you mentioned 6,000 to 6,500 crores for FY26, if I heard you correctly?
Yes, yes.
So 6,000 is what you were projecting for FY25. You made 5.5. Now you're projecting 6 to 6.5 for FY26.
Correct.
Right. So, and now coming to the FTA bit, do you have any exposure to the UK market currently? And if not, then how do you see this as an opportunity for a company like yours for the UK market?
No, I think UK market will be a very important market going forward. I think until now the import and the tariff barriers were a big concern, but automotive sector being in the 99%, which will be tariff free, that will be a big game changer, and having a right-hand drive product from India, which we are already looking at for exporting to new markets, I think this would be an ideal market for us to enter.
Do you have presence in UK?
No, we don't have any presence in UK as of now. Yes.
Okay, but are you planning to?
Now
in the next 1 or 2 years?
Now definitely we see that we would be looking to enhance our presence in the UK. We already have presence in other parts of the world, like in Middle East, Africa, in Asia Pacific, and Europe, but not in UK.
No. So how long will it take for you to establish a presence?
I think,
can you get some revenues in FY26? Because I'm sure there is an entire procedure which goes behind this.
Yeah, definitely. I think we would be looking to see how we can create business opportunities in this year and realize them in the beginning of next year.
Since we are on this subject, Nishant, could you also share us a breakup of your domestic to exports breakup in FY25? What are you targeting for FY26? And what's your take on the overall export market in the geographies that you are present in? How much do you plan on growing it this year?
No, so in FY25, we were 95% plus domestic and close to up to 5% exports. Now this year we're trying to see how we can double it up to close to 10% exports.
So you want to take it? Yes, please go on.
Yeah, and primarily in Europe, Asia Pac, and Middle East, Africa.
So you're planning on doubling your export share to around 10% in FY26 is what you're saying?
Correct.
Right. Okay. And what about your launch pipeline? Any new launches that are in the works anytime soon?
Yeah, this year we are planning to launch 4 new products. And we'll be talking about it soon in the next coming months.
Okay. For your platform, JBM EcoLife Mobility, that houses, I think, the gross contract special purpose vehicle, you were looking to secure some more funding. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So where are we? Because I think you raised money in September of last year for the EcoLife platform, but I think you were scouting for some more money.
Yeah. So we have raised money from ADB, AIIB recently as well. So that has been concluded. Yes.
That was in September of last year, right?
Also in month
ADB?
of March. So also in month of March, we have closed a few more rounds with ADB and AIB.
And how much was that?
So we are starting with about 200 crores, and we'll be growing further as new projects come along.
Okay. And how will this change your, at the consolidated level for JBM Auto Limited, JAL, the listed entity, how will this change the debt profile? Because now you need to infuse less money into the platform. So we are
trying to see that the platform becomes self-sufficient. So platform becoming self-sufficient is very important because then it can generate cash from its existing SPVs and new SPVs and fuel its own growth for the future.
Nishant, is the OEM business, the segment performance, does that remain a cause of concern for you? How do you see that shaping up this year?
No, that is not a challenge because as you see, even last year, the OEM performance profitability has increased multifold, and definitely in this year, we would be looking at higher volumes because the first half of the last year, due to different elections and different changes in different multiple states, things were a bit slower. So I think now things are on the right track with very strong policy framework and deployment plan. So from the beginning of this year, the things are in the right direction.
Nishant, very quickly, one final question. There was a lot of M&A activity taking place in your field right now. Were you in the fray for SML Isuzu? Just to hear it from you. And are there any inorganic plans, growth plans in the pipeline for FY26? Are you looking at something?
No, so as I said that I would not like to comment on market speculation even earlier. So we were not looking at SML, and definitely as something comes up which we are looking at inorganically, we'll share with you.
Has something come up?
No, not right now.
Not yet. All right, Nishant. Thank you so much for sparing time and joining us today. Wish you good luck for the rest of the year as well. The management there of JBM Auto. Take a short break. The markets continue to remain around that 24,350 mark. We discuss the road ahead for the Indian equities with Mihir Vora from Trust Mutual Fund on the other side. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Mihir Vora from Trust Mutual Fund is now joining in to navigate the market volatility, the headlines, and what investors should be doing with their money in such a situation where tensions are running high between India and Pakistan. Mihir, thank you very much for joining in. So, long-term history tells us that generally, even when tensions are high, it's not that there is a material damage to the markets. We generally tend to move on. But in the near term, as we navigate the here and now, what's the advice that you're giving to clients now?
So,
I think you're on mute. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. So obviously markets will remain volatile around such events. But to some extent, since it's been a couple of weeks since the terrorist incident happened, the markets have been expecting some action. Last time, I think in 2019, there was a couple of months of gap between the event and the action. This time around, it has happened much faster, I guess. So to that extent, partly such action was expected. The timing, of course, was not known. So, I mean, once you're past the actual event, probably the market start looking a bit more forward. Now I think the ball is in the enemy country's hand to basically take a call on how much they want to escalate the situation, because I think India has done what it needed to do, and probably there might be some more going forward. But more or less, I think the big event is past us. The markets have been actually kind of discounting this, and in spite of knowing this, impending action to some extent. The markets have been quite stable. What has happened, I think, is over the last 20 years, we've gone through a learning curve. And the big picture is that even though such events happen, they have not really escalated into a wider conflict. So that's the learning over the last 20 years. And second is that the Indian economy itself has grown so large that even if there is some skirmish, the economic implications in the long term are not that significant. So I think these two learnings are very significant over the last 20 years. And the third portion is, of course, the fact that both FII flows and domestic flows are quite robust in the last few weeks. Domestic flows have been robust for the past few years, which was not the case, say, 10 or 20 years ago. So I think the bottom line is that the Indian investors have gone through this learning phase. Domestic flows are strong, and basically, unless this thing escalates into a wider conflict, the markets are able to absorb such shocks.
Mihir, good morning. Thank you for joining in. The other big factor that has been the determinant of the market moves have been earnings. And there was a lot of fear that the fourth quarter earnings may also turn out to be as bad as the third quarter was. But that has not been the case, at least for majority of the companies that have reported so far. Do you see this improving further as we go into FY26? Because then the low base kicks in as well, and that acts as an additional kicker to move the market higher.
Yes, that's been our base case in any case. But so far, the earnings season has been a mixed bag. I wouldn't be very euphoric about it so far. At least the large caps have not done too much in terms of earnings surprises, but they haven't been major disappointments too. So I would say it's been a mixed bag with single-digit kind of earnings growth expected for the March quarter that just went by. Going forward, as you rightly mentioned, there is a low base, especially in the June and the September quarters. The base is far lower because we saw that the government spending in the quarter of June 24 and September 24 really was low, and there was a big break, I would say. So that base should help us going forward, and that's been our base case going forward. Large cap earnings growth expectations are still probably high single digits. Small cap earnings growth expectations are a little better at about 15%, and I think so far that assumption still holds.
So Mihir, are you all fully invested at Trust Mutual Fund?
Normally, we tend to be fully invested. We don't keep more than 5 to 10% cash, and that's the current situation also.
So incremental money that's coming your way, where are you deploying it? So tell us the actions, the portfolio changes that you all did in the month of April.
Broadly speaking, we haven't done too many changes in April. We had done some changes in Jan-Feb, essentially shifted a bit in favor of larger private sector banks and NBFCs, added a bit to some of the cyclicals again, which we have trimmed a bit. But apart from that, no major changes, I would say.
The two themes, Mihir, that I wanted to ask you about, where there is rising competition. You just saw a downgrade coming in for DMart earlier this morning over this rising competition. So how do you approach this retail / hyper-local retail space? And you can combine that with the quick commerce players as well. And the other one is the wires and cables space, where after the foray from Ultratech, from Adani, the numbers that have been reported so far by the incumbents have been fairly resilient.
Sure. So on the quick commerce space, we have some exposure because we do think it's a growth segment. However, there has been disappointments in the last couple of quarters. The assumption was that we probably may not see as intense competition in the 10-minute delivery, 15-minute delivery space. But I think companies are not taking any chances and investing for the future, so to say, which is depressing margins to some extent. So it's kind of a mixed bag. We're not taking a big call either way. We have some holding. We are sticking with it. As far as the cable space is concerned, there is a concern of competition. But I think beyond the point, maybe valuations are catching up, though we don't have much exposure to this space. But the sector has been lackluster in terms of earnings growth for quite some time. And maybe the base effect is now catching up, I would say.
The Alco-Bev sector is in focus today on the back of the UK FTA. Is this a sector that you have interest in? Is it a part of your portfolio? Any stocks here?
Yes, we do have some mid-cap exposure in the Alco-Bev space. But that's more because of the fact that we do believe that premium consumption items will continue to grow well. And, spirits are, of course, to some extent discretionary. And We have seen the industry growing more because of premiumization, so which fits in well with our thesis of premium consumption. So we have some exposure there, yes.
Mihir, pleasure having you as always. Thank you so much for sparing time and joining us today on the show. Mihir Vora there of Trust Mutual Fund. Take a short break, continue with earnings conversations. Amit Agarwal, the Executive Director and Group CFO of DCM Shriram, joins us on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Continuing with earnings conversations, then we're now being joined by Amit Agarwal, the Executive Director and Group CFO at DCM Shriram, to discuss the road ahead for the company. Amit, good morning. Thank you for joining in. Get it straight off the bat. What are the kind of growth targets that you are penciling for FY26 now, considering the situations that are developing both in the country as well in terms of the economic growth, of course, and the geopolitical tensions overseas when it comes to tariffs and all of that? What are the kind of growth targets for FY26?
Yeah, I think for us, we've completed our capital expenditure programs in chemicals. A large part of it has been completed, which happened in the current financial year, the year gone by. And in this financial year, also, we are completing a couple of projects. So what I feel is that a lot of growth is going to be volume driven. The project which we completed last year will have full year impact this year. Some of the projects which we are completing in early part of this year, they will have an impact this year and next year. Similarly, next year also, early next year, we are completing some projects. So it is a continuous pipeline of volume growth that we're looking at in chemicals, some of it in sugar. Similarly, in our Fenesta and Farm Solutions business also, we're looking at volume growth. So I think that's the best part, that our growth going forward will be driven by volumes.
And what are the kind of volume growth that you're expecting this year, Amit?
See, I think if you are wanting to understand in terms of revenue, so I feel on a conservative basis, we should see a 10 to 15% revenue growth year on year.
10 to 15%. Similar to last year, you ended FY25 with 11% and FY26 should also be 10 to 15%. Chemicals is about 20% of your top line right now?
Chemicals would be close to about 25% of our top line.
25. And now with the expanded capacity coming on stream, what is the guidance on chemicals revenues and how much will it contribute going forward? And will there be any change to your EBITDA margins in the chemicals business?
Yeah, so I think in the coming year, majority of our growth in bottom line, a large part of it will be driven by chemicals business. They will form a large part of our profitability. And even on the top line, from current about 20-25%, they will be in the range of 25 to 30% in terms of top line.
Okay. And what would the growth be? You're saying the revenue contribution should inch up closer to 25-30%.
Yes.
And what would the revenue growth and even the margin improvement? Because you're saying that will be the dominant driver for your profitability.
See, I think, as I said, for our kind of businesses, what we look at is how we are growing our business in terms of volumes, because that defines the growth. And the other thing is what we are doing on the cost side. So we have been taking cost side initiatives in terms of power plants, in terms of green energy. I think those are things which are in our control, and that helps our margins. Now, to specific to your point on margins, last year, full year, we had a margin in chemicals of about 17% at EBITDA level, and Q4 was about a 20%. So given, the way industry is, the way we are seeing trade wars and things like that, I don't think it's right to give what the number can be. But best case, we do expect to be operating in that range on higher volumes, which means higher profitability.
So in that case, Amit, what are the kind of margin targets that you are penciling in? Do you expect to remain in this 11 to 13, 14% range for FY26 as well?
I think so. We should be in that range.
All right. And what about the ECH plant, Amit? There have been several delays, right, with regards to the commissioning of the plant. There were supposed to be trials in the fourth quarter as well, and expected to be commissioned in the fourth quarter. Where do we stand on that regard?
I think we have completed almost 99% of the project, right? It is just that some equipment is, having some technical issues. Now, somewhere where we invested almost 4 large projects got implemented in last 2 years, I would say, in terms of commissioning. We can have a problem in one of the projects, which is can always happen. But we're looking into it, and I think our trials should start now by this month end, and we should be commissioning in early June.
What's the broader outlook for sugar, ethanol, and even the Fenesta business? What would be the key milestones the company is likely to achieve in these two segments?
See, sugar this season wasn't very good, given the fact that the sugarcane production was low in the country, and therefore production levels came down. Even the recovery levels came down. So I think there is scope. If you say next year, obviously there is scope for increased volumes in sugar as well. But I think what's important in sugar business is, or industry, I would say, is for the government to look at a holistic policy for sugarcane cultivation, how it can be improved, and also for a better policy for manufacturers, both for sugar as well as ethanol. Although we feel in this year it should be better, hopefully the overall sugarcane production should increase. Therefore, it should be better off. But then, there are a lot of issues like crop economics, climate challenges, diseases. I think these needs to be looked at more holistically for a long-term stability of sugar business.
What about the margins and the top line growth for the sugar business, Amit? Have you set any targets for that?
The sugar business is very difficult to set targets for the margins. It's so sensitive commodity, both on the feedstock side as well as on the output side. So it's difficult, but we do expect margins to be better.
Do you have any exports?
See, exports is driven by how much government allows. It's completely regulated sector, both on the input and output side.
Okay, so what was the export contribution?
Last year, not very significant. I think overall profitability, maybe 5-6 crores would be.
Okay. And is that likely to change this year?
I don't think so, because production levels have been low this year. Inventory levels in the industry have been low for sugar. So I do expect some production, but not very significant.
Now tell us more about your recent acquisition, Amit, the DNV Global, the rationale, the opportunity that you're seeing from this acquisition, and how is it likely to contribute to your P&L this year?
So one, I think we are very excited with this acquisition because it's a new area that we've entered into, which is an adjacent to Fenesta, the windows and doors business that we have. Now, currently the way this business acquisition is being looked at is more in terms of backward integration, because it will help us innovate on hardware faster, and it will also help us give better customer experience. So that's the whole objective to start with. Going forward, futuristic, what we look at is this as another vertical or another revenue stream where we get into more innovative hardware, and where we sell it as a product, as a revenue stream direct to customers as well. So it's a bit of a long-term story. I think this will shape up over a period of next 2 to 3 years, but we are very excited with this new entry.
But does it start contributing meaningfully this year, or you'd see meaningful contributions only 2 to 3 years down the line?
Meaningful will be 2 to 3 years down the line.
Right. All right, Amit, thank you so much for sparing time and joining us today. Wish you good luck for the rest of the year as well. The management there of DCM Shriram on their quarterly results and the road ahead for their. Take a short break. More on the markets on the other side.
Welcome back. Gokuldas exports is now up 16%. It's moved up on very large volumes, now approaching the 4-digit mark on Gokuldas exports, 990 in terms of a stock price. BSE, Bombay Stock Exchange, also hit a fresh 52-week high. The stock is close to 6,800 rupees. The intraday high today was, I think, 6,847. So it's made a new fresh 52-week high on the back of the Q4 numbers. 10% revenue growth quarter on quarter, 75% on a year-on-year basis. And the company is also gaining market share in the options category. Motilal Oswal here has put a target price of 7,600 and they're valuing Bombay Stock Exchange at 45 times. We spoke about Paytm and how that's a big mover. Another one is Piramal Enterprises. Again, on the back of their numbers, Piramal Enterprises is up close to about, I think, 7%. And in the conference call, the management has guided for a 25% year-on-year growth in the total AUM, primarily driven by growth in the retail loan segment. So good quarter, and the company is guiding for a 25% top-line growth next year. Ather is another big mover. Yesterday, day one of the listing, subdued day, but today it's bounced back. Indian Hotels too, despite good numbers, came in for profit booking, and the stock has rebounded smartly. KFin, Kajaria Ceramics, Parag Milk, IFL Finance are some of the other big movers in the mid-cap space. We leave the Nifty at that 24,350 mark, mildly lower. Things have quietened down on the index. With that, it's a wrap on this show. Thank you very much for watching.
Stocks stage a smart recovery after a weak open as investors shrug off fears of a conflict escalation with Pakistan and focus on the positive developments on trade. Auto and utilities lead the charge while FMCG and healthcare drag.
India and the United Kingdom have concluded a historic free trade agreement 3 years after negotiations were launched. The pact covers almost all tariff lines with duty-free access for Indian exports and revised tariff lines for imports. Alcobev, textiles and autos will be the key impacted sectors.
Indian Armed Forces launched precision non-escalatory strikes on 9 terrorist bases in Pakistan in response to TRF's terror act in Pahalgam. No civilian casualties were noted and no military establishments targeted in the non-escalatory strikes.
US and China have agreed to hold formal talks on trade later this week with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jameson Greer representing the US in the slated icebreaker in Geneva. Experts, however, don't expect a deal anytime soon.
Hello and welcome to Halftime Report on CNBC TV 18. I'm Ekta Batra and with me is Mangalam Malu. Well, it's definitely been a nervous session, you'd have to say, for the markets. Yes, there is an intraday recovery which has taken place. But I think the street is definitely going to be watching developments. While on one side, we have all of the positive developments with regards to the FTA, the free trade agreement, as well as, the talks with China on trade agreements as well. The other side, we obviously do have these geopolitical concerns which are making the market a bit nervous at this point in time. So currently, advanced decline ratio a bit even keel. We have the Nifty, which is absolutely flat, as you can see, and the broader markets are showing a little bit of color, so up around 1.2%. Currently for the mid caps. Hi, Mangalam.
Hi, Ekta. Nervous yet mature. We are fairly consolidating right now, not very different from what it was earlier itself. And post the briefings that came in from the Ministry of Defence as well, which were fairly specific, we did see a decline in the India VIX, which had spiked ahead of the briefing in anticipation of what would be the contents of those briefings itself. And as all eyes are on, the updates coming in from the border and Operation Sindoor, we have Parikshit joining in to get us up to speed with what the latest is out here. Parikshit.
Well, yes, of course, there was that exhaustive, comprehensive briefing that was held by Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri and Colonel Sophia Qureshi from the Army, and also Vyomika Singh, the Wing Commander of the Air Force. A very strong message, a symbolic message also being sent out by the Indian forces and the government that our strike has destroyed all 9 targets. These were terror camps operating in Pakistan. 7 of them were targeted by Indian artillery and Indian drones by the Indian Army. 2 by the Indian Air Force. Some of these targets were 100 kilometers away from the border. Some were within 15 to 25 kilometers. So the shorter targets were taken care of by the Army and the longer targets were taken care of by the Indian Air Force. We used precision munitions in these strikes to attack ground targets such as all these terror camps. Our attempt was to eliminate Pakistan's ability to carry out terror strikes against India. This operation is not over. We've been told the operation is ongoing. There will be more updates over the next few days. There is a high alert all along the LOC. In fact, Pakistan, immediately after the operation, which lasted for about 20-25 minutes, opened fire in a very heavy manner. In fact, heavy artillery shelling from Pakistan all along the LOC and the international border has been continuing, especially in places such as Poonch. Civilian areas have been evacuated. 8 civilians, we believe, have been killed. 2 have been injured. And the military operation now continues. The airspace in airports all along the border have been shut down. This is because of the military exercises and the operation that is on. And heavy security in all vital installations and critical areas all around the country.
Okay, all right, Parikshit, stay on. We do have more questions for you. But in the meanwhile, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, in his first response since India launched strikes in Pakistan, says it was deemed essential that the perpetrators be brought to justice. Let's listen in to his comments and the force's response to the strikes.
These actions were measured, non-escalatory, proportionate, and responsible. They focused on dismantling the terrorist infrastructure and disabling terrorists likely to be sent across to India. it was deemed essential that the perpetrators and planners of the 22nd April attack be brought to justice.
No military establishments were targeted. India has demonstrated considerable restraint in its response. However, it must be said that the Indian armed forces are fully prepared to respond to Pakistani misadventures, if any, that will escalate the situation.
ऑपरेशन सिंदूर 22 अप्रैल को पहलगाम में हुए विभत्स आतंकवादी हमले के शिकार मासूम नागरिकों व उनके परिवारों को न्याय देने के लिए लॉन्च किया गया था। इस कार्रवाई में 9 टेररिस्ट कैंप्स को टारगेट किया गया और पूरी तरह से इसे बर्बाद किया गया। किसी भी सैन्य ठिकाने का निशाना नहीं बनाया गया और अभी तक किसी तरह की नागरिक क्षति की रिपोर्ट नहीं है।
All right, let's stick with this itself. In response to the growing national security concerns, nationwide civil defense drill is scheduled today in 244 districts. What are the details about these mock drills and what do these mock drills entail? What would be some of those important of the 244 districts that there are? Let's go back to Parikshit for the same. Parikshit, there's a civil defense drill as well.
That's right. In fact, just to tell our viewers, the last time that we saw these nationwide mock drills or wartime mock drills taking place was in 1971 when the Indo-Pak war broke out. Even during the Kargil war in 1999, we only saw very limited mock drills in some places along the border, not pan-India. So clearly, this is an exercise to prepare and sensitize civilians about what's happening nationally, about to align them with the national security and military operation that is underway across the LOC. Clearly, the operation for Sindoor must have begun immediately after the Pahalgam attack. And similarly, the need was felt to have these mock drills around the country to make sure that the citizens are motivated, they're aware on how to protect themselves in case of a hostile attack. This doesn't mean that we're wanting war or we want a hostile attack, but the fact is when you carry out a kinetic strike of this kind against Pakistan, where you use artillery guns, where you use fighter jets to carry out terror strikes against the border, then you cannot judge or fix the response of the other side. That's not in your control. There is every possibility that Pakistan may preemptively or may actually want to escalate the situation, and it could lead to a full-blown conflict as well. So one has to work with that eventuality in mind, and that's why these nationwide mock drills are taking place to teach people how to evacuate in case of an emergency, where to hide in case there is an air siren which goes off, how to defend yourself in case of a hostile attack, how to come to the rescue of people who have been injured. How should children, how should college students be trained? So there are awareness camps going on. Of course, hotline centers will be established on how the civilian defense teams should cooperate with the Air Force and the Army in case there is any kind of attack or distress situation. The response times of different teams. Now, we must tell our viewers, the civil defense teams comes under the Ministry of Home Affairs. It is a separate department of Civil Defense. You've got 6 lakh civil defense volunteers across the country. Every state government has a civil defense department, and anyone can join these departments voluntarily. Currently, there are about 6 lakh, and we hear from our sources that the government wants to take the enrollment in civil defense teams to somewhere around 18 lakhs. So they want to motivate people to be a part of this national security operation, be mentally aware about what's happening and sensitize others about the gravity of the situation as well. So 244 districts. Why 244? Because these are areas where the Civil Defense Department of the government has a base in the country. So these are the only places where people can enroll. And in the coming days, you are likely to see more such mock drills happen in schools, in districts, along border areas, all over the country.
All right, Parikshit, thanks a lot for that. So that's the update as far as the mock drill is concerned. As Parikshit was speaking, there was a slight recovery in the markets. The markets have been consolidating around the flat line by and large, but right now it's just a wee bit of recovery, and it's led by a couple of these